Doing today. So I'm having some coughing problems. Okay, so I want to make that clear. I'm having some coughing problems. Um, and I'm having some itching on my neck because I just shaved my hair. Um, so we are discussing Halloween because today in America it is Halloween. Okay, and as a Christian we need to understand this concept. And I just thought it would be really nice to just learn all about Halloween, where it came from, and everything like that. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I'm Googling specific questions about Halloween, and we'll be looking at all the different things having to do with Halloween, all the different aspects of it, what is kind of teetering on good or bad, which parts are definitely not a thing to do, kind of thing. Okay, so the question I asked first is this: where does Halloween come from? Okay, so we're going to be looking at the origins of Halloween, as well as jack-o'-lanterns and everything else. Okay, let me see if they're all the same. Okay, so hold on. This would originate from. Okay, so there's dark origins of it. It's originally pagan. So we're going to be looking at. So first of all, we're looking at different aspects of it. So let's look at the big picture for the first. Why do we celebrate Halloween? What is it about? And you can stop trying to play because you're an ad and I don't like you. Okay? So here's what we know, okay? Halloween, what does Halloween include? Candy, right? Trick-or-treating, okay? Dressing up in costumes. Having a Halloween party or a monster bash, right? These are the traditions, okay? Having to do with Halloween. These are the so-called, you know what, you're really getting on my nerve. Sorry. You silly little thing. This little string light. Sorry about that. So these are the things that we do in holiday traditions, specifically about Halloween. So here we go. The origins of Halloween go back thousands of years, right? From the Celtic people, which celebrated something known as Samhain, right? Or Samhain, okay? As they call it. It's spelled Samhain, Samhain, but it's pronounced Samhain, okay? Which is probably where they get the name Halloween from. It's pronounced Samhain, a festival, right? So the purpose of the festival originally was to mark the end of the harvest season, when people would gather the harvest up, right? And usher in a new year. Now I may need, I also have like this pain in my throat. So if you see me using spray, that's okay too, okay? The veil, and during this time, as well as ushering in the new year and harvest season, Samhain also supposedly had the veil between the world of the living and the world of the dead is supposed to be very thin, right? That's why a lot of people would dress up as demons, and that's why people believed. I mean, think about the concepts of what you believe for Halloween, right? It's the day of the dead, the day of evil, the day of things, spirits can walk the earth, and da 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 da. You get the idea. And apparently my chair likes to squeak, okay? And that is because they believe that the veil, or the separation between the world of the living and the world of the dead, is really thin, right? So people could communicate with the loved ones that have passed on. Now that's obviously a no-no. The Bible clearly says talking with the dead is not something you're supposed to be doing. This is why we're not supposed to be associating with mediums, psychics, astrologists, or anything of that nature, okay? Now, the first thing to peg about Halloween is there's a supernatural aspect about it. But that can be said about all things, right? Even faith has a supernatural aspect to it. So supernatural by itself is not inherently evil, okay? It's how it's used, right? And some parts of it, yes, can be fun and okay to do. So I will go into great detail about all the things I know from my own life, what I've witnessed, and everything. Okay, so let's start off with trick or treating. Right, trick or treating. Okay, trick or treating has its origins as well. Okay, so trick or treating has its origins. There is history about trick or treating, so we will be looking that up as well. Okay, but as far as things go, so here we go. Right, Halloween traditions before you head out trick or treating. Turns out the holiday has much more interesting and sometimes even spooky. Right, so it's trick or treating. Then there's now. Let me put it this way: you eating candy, nothing wrong with it. Nothing unbiblical about you eating candy. Maybe it's not good for your health, but there's nothing there's nothing sinful about it. Nothing bad about it. Okay. I have, and I'll show you here. I have Halloween cookies, right? Halloween cookies, cookies that have orange frosting on it. I'm planning on eating these tonight. Okay. And right now it's 8 o'clock. I have my gummy bears, some snacks that I want. I have Reese's Pieces white chocolate candies. Okay. Now, obviously, that would probably not go sit well with my stomach, but I'm going to enjoy it for tonight. It's one day out of a year, okay? Nothing wrong with that. Even Christian churches to this day, they don't celebrate Halloween in the sense of the way the world does, but what they do is they, in the parking lot of the church, they gather all the cars, right? And everybody opens their trunk, and they call it trunk or treat. Not trick or treat, but trunk or treat, because the word trick or treat refers to playing mean games and mischief and doing bad things on people, right? So, hence the word trick or treat, okay? Spooky, there's another aspect of it. What is associated with Halloween? Spookiness, scaring. And what is according to the Bible, right? What does the Bible say? Do not be afraid. Do not be fearful, right? Anytime it talks about fear or afraid, it usually does not talk about it in a good way, unless it's referring to you being fearful of God, in the sense, having a good, healthy fear of God. Okay. Now, traveling back, we learn all the different aspects of Halloween, where carving pumpkin came from, right? We look back at, really, no, I don't want your stupid ads. You get off my thing. So let's look at the facts, okay? Halloween originated almost 2,000 years ago when the Celtic people in Europe celebrated the end of the harvest and the start of the year in a festival called Samhain, right? Samhain, or as it's spelled. People also believed that they could commune with the dead. Now, that's a no-no. The Bible clearly tells you that one. So that's a no-no, talking with the dead, okay? But they did believe that you could talk with the dead more easily during that time, and they would light bonfires, that would be campfires, right, to ward off the bad spirits. But what you need a fire for, you have God to do that, okay? And this is according to the American Folklore Center, Folk Life Center, folklore. In other words, things of the past, okay? So Halloween does have a dark spiritual history, right? The Celts also believed that the spiritual communication was made easier for priests, druids, as well as, listen to this, predict the future. There's another no-no, right? According to history, right? To appease the deities or the gods, they would build bonfires, and they would sacrifice crops or even animals, right? Villagers also attended the bonfire ceremonies wearing animal heads or skins, which may be where the tradition of Halloween costumes came from, okay? Bats are usually a Halloween symbol, so are ghosts, Frankensteins, all these things. Nowadays, most of us associate bats with Halloween, and that is historical roots too. The Druids, right? The Druids' Samhain bonfires, the fires that they would make, right, would attract bugs first that would hover over the fire. And then bats would eventually go, oh, hey, this is a feast. Let's go eat all these bugs, right? So the bats would swoop down and get the bugs, which makes sense because that's how bats echolocation. They shoot out a voice sound that humans can't hear, and it bounces off of objects and come back, okay? In later years, various people looked at bats as the harbingers of that, the bringers of death and doom, right? In Scottish mythology, a bat settling inside of a house means a man in the family will die. So there's much superstition, if you will, about bats. There's nothing evil about a bat itself, though. Okay. Now the Romans conquered Celtic territory in 43 A.D. Okay. Now this is just some back history, and they brought the cultures of the Celtic into the Roman Empire area. Okay. A Roman October celebration called Feralia commemorated the passing of the dead. Another holiday known as the Pomona honored the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. That's right then and there, bowing down to other gods. Okay. Passing of the dead, focusing on the dead when you're supposed to be focusing on the future. Okay. This is one reason why people would bob for apples. Again, the act of bobbing for apple, nothing sinful about it, right? The act of playing board games or things, nothing sinful about it, okay? Now, Christians are actually behind, the world is actually behind on when, so listen to this. Fast forward a few centuries, which is today, and the festival that would become Halloween has evolved. Several Christians attempted to replace pagan holidays like Samhain with their own religious observances. Churches do that today. Right now, at this time, they're having what's called the Harvest Festival or Harvest Party. It's the Christian version of Halloween, where they could share with candy, play games, fellowship with friends, but not partake in any of this sinful stuff. So let's look at some of the words, okay? In 1000 AD, All Souls Day, right, on November 2nd, served as a time for the living to pray for the souls of the dead. Now, I don't personally think there's any sense in that, praying for the souls of the dead. They're already dead. You know, the reason I don't believe in that is simply this. The moment you die, your decision is already made. You had your decision ended, like your decision was made the moment you took your last breath. That's what I believe. So, based on the Bible. So, praying for, but this is just the beliefs that I'm sharing with you of that time. So, All Souls Day, also known as All Saints Day, or in this word, All Hallows, right? And that word is very interesting because in the Bible, hallowed be your name. Special, hallow, right? Holy or set apart, right? All Hallows is honored the saints on November 1st. That made October 31st All Hallows Eve, which later became Halloween, right? Hallow coming from Hallows, right? All Hallows, and Ween coming from Samhain, right? So that's how they got the name. Now, the British people, the English people in Ireland, right, they were the ones that introduced the ghostly aspects. Okay, they were the ones that introduced the ghost aspects, right? Hello, little mama. They were the ones that introduced the ghostly aspects, England and Ireland, right? They would set out gifts of food to satisfy hungry spirits, right? And time worn on, people began dressing in creepy costumes to go begging for treats themselves. The practice was called mumming, mumming, mumming. And today it's called trick or treating, okay? Now, the swapping of ghost stories, fortune telling, and things, that was added on later as well, right? American and Southern colonies brought that on, right? Women bobbing for apples, that part came from the idea in the 17 and 1800s, unmarried women, so women that were not married, performed rituals on Halloween in hopes of finding a husband. These ladies would throw apple peels over their shoulder, hoping to see their future husband's initials in the shapes of the peels that fell on the ground, right? And they competitively bobbed for apples at parties, believing that the winner would be the one to marry first. So kind of like the tradition when you get married, you take a thing of flowers and you toss a bouquet and you toss it over your shoulder. The wife would, right? Same principle, okay? And almost everything having to do with Halloween has some sort of dark aspect, right? Dark aspect. The candles, mirrors, right? In rituals, they would sound very creepy, right? And the thought of standing in a dark room with a candle in front of a mirror would make their future husband's face appear in the glass. This is where they get the story of Bloody Mary. Now, let's begin. Let's look at this. How did jack-o'-lanterns get introduced, right? The holiday we celebrate as Halloween today really started off in the U.S. in the middle of the 19th century. Okay, 19th century, that would be 1800-ish. When a wave of Irish immigrants left their country due to the potato famine, right? The newcomers brought their superstitions and customs, including a jack-o'-lantern, but back then, they carved them into turnips or potatoes or beets. Why was that the case? Okay, so let's examine this. In Ireland, turnips were the native vegetable, right? Or even potatoes or beets were the native vegetable. So instead of carving demonic faces or evil-looking faces onto a pumpkin, they would carve it onto these little vegetables, right? And they would set it out. When they came over to America, they realized, okay, America doesn't really have a lot of turnips or beets very often. It's not in season very often, okay? So they decided, oh, well, okay, pumpkin is a lot bigger. Let's carve it into a pumpkin. And that's how they got into the pumpkin thing, right? Halloween focuses on treats today. So the main part of Halloween today really focuses on a few aspects. Candy, right? Games, and dressing up in outfits, right? So as we get near the end of this, I'll tell you my personal take on Halloween, how I've limited it, and how you should view it in a basic context, okay? Halloween is not a federal holiday, by the way. It's not a holiday of the government. So just making that sure. Okay, so that's how the origins, for the most part, came about. So let's look at some other things. Let's look at Halloween, which we discovered already. We talked about. Okay. Trying to just scan this real quick. Okay, so let's look at some of the ways that people would dress up in Halloween, right? Witches, goblins, fairies, demons. Most of that stuff's associated with hell, not heaven, right? They would disguise. So the idea of dressing up, right? They wore masks and other disguises to avoid being recognized by the ghosts that would be present. Now that was, sorry. Oh, sorry. That would be associated with the spirits that were supposedly to be set free on the earth on Halloween, right? People didn't want to be recognized. Now, there are some aspects here. So, this period of time is thought to be very good for divination, telling the future, right? Matters of marriage, health, and death, right? This is why, in many areas, on Halloween, what do? Let me tell you your future. Let me bring out my crystal ball. Let me flip over some tarot cards, all of it demonic, okay? All of it is associated with the occult. Also pronounced as occult, okay? When the Roman, we already talked about that, they took hold of it, right? So, here's the part that you haven't heard. In the 7th century, the 600s, Pope Boniface IV established All Saints' Day, originally on May 13th, and in the following century afterwards, the next 100 years, right, it became a pagan holiday. And even today, it's a pagan holiday. Okay, it's a pagan holiday, not a Christian one. Christians do a version of it, but the actual holiday of Halloween is pagan, not from God, in other words. Okay. The actual observance of it is November 1st, right? The evening before is All Saints' Day, became holy or hallowed eve, thus Halloween, right? And my kitty cat is up over there because she's being goofy. Now, Britain, Halloween continued to be celebrated as a secular holiday, not being associated with religion, in other words, okay? Along with other festivals, right? And it was largely forbidden among many American colonists in the 1800s. Now, that should tell you something, okay? When America got founded, it was founded on what? God, right? So it would make sense that way back then, they would not really allow any of this ungodly stuff. Now, America is more ungodly for most of America. So, yeah, they're going to be following after doing much of the stuff that they shouldn't be doing, okay? And they took Halloween costumes with them. And the 20th century Halloween became one of the principles for the U.S. holiday. Really, cat? Really? Okay. You get in trouble up there. That's your problem. Hopefully you don't. Okay. My cat wants to be a distraction. So one of the practices of pulling away harmless pranks, right? Tricks. Hence the word trick-or-treating. They would wear masks or costumes. They would play tricks on people, which is not nice. It's rude and bad, right? They would beg for food called. So here's where the food part came in, right? In the British area, right, they would be practicing of something allowing the poor to beg for food called soul cakes, right? Which is where the trick-or-treating part comes in, okay? And this later became candy, right? Halloween parties often included games such as bobbing for apples, right? Which were created by, make sure my cat has room to jump down if she needs to, okay? And they were created by, what was that? Trick-or-treat and candy. Halloween's were games, and that's the bobbing for apples and all this stuff. Skeletons were associated with Halloween and witches and stuff. Black cats, superstition, right? Black cats, right? Black cats are not ungodly. They're just an animal, that's all, okay? Hey, baby girl, okay? The holiday has incorporated scary beings, such as ghosts, witches, vampires, into the celebration. So those are that aspect. Now listen to where all those come from. Ghosts are just spirits, right? Vampires are obviously demonic. Witches are associated with the demonic culture. So you think about how so much of the stuff dealing with Halloween is associated with darkness, right? And even the darkness associated with evil things. Okay. Now here's the part so the jack-o'-lantern, as I said, was hollowed out pumpkin. Originally was a turnip, right? And they carved demonic faces into it to ward away the spirits, in an attempt to ward away the spirits, right? For the most part. So those are just some of the things, okay? But let's look at some more questions that might be associated with it, right? Because one of them is, what does the Bible have to say about Halloween? Okay, 13 verses for your insight, which we will look at later. Okay, so why is pumpkin a symbol of Halloween? Because pumpkins were associated with it, right? Now, the name Jack-o'-lantern has very big story, okay, to it. I don't know if this one's going to list the story. I did read about it. I'm trying to find words that, where did Jack-o'-lantern originate? Okay, there we go. There's the one. the story of Jack-o'-lantern, and it didn't actually look like a jack-o'-lantern. If you saw this picture, it looked more like a demonic creature. Okay, it really does. And it's really weird looking. Now, there are much different things. So let's look at, first of all, why do they carve pumpkins? Now, I told you they do carve pumpkins. So let's look at the actual history of the carving of pumpkin. Okay, the jack-o'-lantern, which is what they make the pumpkins into, right, with the glowing face and stuff, right? It has a long history with Halloween. Although our favorite, listen to this word, although our favorite demonic faces, demonic, keyword, demonic faces, haven't always been carved out of pumpkins. The origins come from the Irish myth about Stingy Jack. Okay, so here's the story of Stingy Jack. This is where, hence, Jack-o'-lantern, a lantern of Jack, translation, okay? So the story of Stingy Jack is Stingy Jack tricked the devil for monetary gain, meaning getting money, right? When Jack died, God did not allow Jack into heaven. And the devil didn't allow him into hell either, because the devil didn't like being tricked, right? So Jack was sentenced to roam the earth for all eternity. Now, this is just a story. This is not fact, okay? In Ireland, people started to carve demonic faces out of turnips to frighten away Jack's wandering spirit, right? So when the Irish moved to the U.S., they began carving jack-o'-lanterns from pumpkins, because pumpkins were native to the area of America, okay? And that's where we got the jack-o'-lantern or jack-o'-lantern idea from, okay? It came from this Jack character, this what's his name? This stingy Jack, Stingy Jack. Okay, it doesn't say his name; it just says Stingy Jack. Okay. So let me show you what the original jack-o'-lanterns look like. Okay. Jack-o'-lantern. To begin with, that's what they were, the original jack-o'-lanterns. Okay, and that, for you and me, looks a lot more demonic than the funny, goofy stuff we have today. Okay, so you get the general idea. Okay, and that's the tale of, for the most part, of these jack-o'-lantern things. Okay, and but that's the picture associated with it, right? So there's a story called Jack and the Devil, right? It's from African American, and it's basically Jack tricking the devil twice, right? Jack is evil, the devil appears. Jack tricks the devil, receives more time. Jack is evil, the devil appears again. Jack tricks the devil again, makes a deal to be left alone. Jack dies and has nowhere to go. Okay. So the idea of this story is Jack is an evil man with a drinking habit and cruel, very evil ways. The devil appears at his doorstep to take him to hell. Jack tricks the devil into transforming himself into a 10-cent piece coin, and keeps that 10-cent coin in his pocket until the devil agrees to leave Jack alone for 1 year, right? During the year, Jack does not repent, right? And like he told himself he would, and the devil visits him again and to take him away. Again, Jack tricks the devil into climbing a tree and won't let him down until the devil promises to leave him alone for good. He does just that, the devil does. Eventually, Jack dies and goes to heaven. The angels don't want him in heaven, but because he is a bad man. He is sent down to hell, and the devil abandons him because of Jack's trickery. Jack is now destined to wander around with no place to go, and just the faint light of a burning coal to guide him. That's where the light inside of the jack-o'-lanterns come from, okay? And that's the basic story of the Jack and the Devil, which is the very starting point for the jack-o'-lanterns, okay? So now let's look at biblical verses that have to be associated, for the most part, or in some way, with Halloween, okay? So now that we got some history, right? It's a pagan holiday. It's associated with darkness. It's associated with spirits, evil things, right? Playing games on people, tricking people, all this stuff, okay? Question comes, is it okay for Christians to celebrate Halloween, right? How should a Christian celebrate it, if at all? Depends on the denomination you're in, depends on the church you go to, and it depends on your personal beliefs, right? For example, I don't believe there's anything wrong with me dressing up my house with orange lights, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with me having candy or cookies that are orange, right? Because there's nothing sinful attached to it, right? How far you go really just depends on your personal convictions with God, okay? But what I'm going to give you is what the Bible has to say about the topics associated with Halloween type fun stuff, right? So the first verse we're going to look at is 1 Corinthians 9:22. 1 Corinthians 9:22. I have become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some. Now that's one's kind of loosely related to it, right? That he wants to save people, right? Some Christians limit themselves. That's what I'm doing this Halloween. Next year, I'm not doing any Halloween type stuff at all. Color changing, no orange or nothing. I'm learning to get out of that, okay? If you stay long, I like to join Bond Live. Yeah, you can join on live if you stay long. I'm planning on being here for a little bit. I'm going to go through a lot of different words and questions. It's not going to be a short live, okay? So if you want to join, that's fine. You come on, okay? But eating candy, nothing wrong with it. Eating cookies, nothing wrong with it, okay? Watching Halloween shows, which I just had to separate because I'm going, what do a lot of these shows revolve around? Fear, being scary, right? Things like that, okay? So my beliefs are changing to match more of the Bible as time goes by in relation to holidays, okay? So next Halloween, there's not going to be any celebration of Halloween where I used to do it before, right? My house would be decked out in all these ghosts and goblins and right? You get the idea, okay? Other Christians abstain from Halloween altogether. I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be abstaining or avoiding involving myself with Halloween. Now, there is biblical verses in that. So here's the biblical verse about it. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, okay? But instead expose them, okay? So that's one verse, okay? That's one verse. Now let's look at some particular verses, okay? Here's a very big one, okay? And this one I've read before. I know the second part of it, but the first part of it is one I didn't really know all too well, okay? So I'm going to be saving this image, okay? Okay, first one of these actual verses. Not the first verse, but here's another one. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 21. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons, meaning you can't have the world, your cake and eat it too. You can't have the world and have God. You can't serve two masters, would be another one associated with that. You can't be friend of the world and be friend of God. Okay? You can't partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. Okay? Now, the words here, you can't drink from the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons, specifically, right? Hold on, let me get to your thing. Because I just saw that question. Specifically talking about drinking the cup of the Lord and drinking the cup of demons. Translation. Don't associate yourself with the things of darkness and also associate yourself with the things of light. Does that make sense? Okay. So before I get to this next verse, Sir Kevin, how would you say about people offered food to some family members who will pass away? If the family members are not dead, then that's fine. You giving food to, let's say, for example, you going to a grave site and putting food down, that's wasting food. That's not smart, okay? Because although you're doing it for a purpose, that food could be going to feed somebody that's alive, right? It's better that you not do that, right? and instead give that food to somebody who's alive, who can take benefit from that food doing that. So if you're talking about going and sitting foods down on a grave site, you're only feeding the ants, the bugs. The rest of the food's going to waste, right? You could give somebody a food, a meal that they'll be thankful for. You know what I mean? So my answer to that would be, don't waste your food on that. Now, aside from that, there's nothing wrong in paying respects to the dead, right? There's nothing wrong in missing the dead. There's nothing wrong in honoring the dead, honoring what the legacy they gave. Like me thinking about the many memories that my grandma gave. Nothing wrong with that, okay? But food specifically, that should not be something you'd be offering to the dead, because the dead can't eat, right? The living eat. And there's biblical verse for that. Christ was alive. Why? Because he asked for food. Spirits can't eat, right? So the next one is Ephesians, right? Ephesians 5, chapter 11. Ephesians 5:11. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness. What is Halloween? The unfruitful works of darkness. A lot of aspects of it anyway. Not the whole thing, but different aspects of it. Okay? But instead, expose them. Now see, that directly charges, now that takes us to a different point. That directly charges humans that follow God to not only don't associate with the works of darkness, but instead expose them. Now that's heavy. That means if you see something that's sin, you should immediately expose it. Okay? The next verse. And this one's going to hit home for a lot of people because it's very easy. Okay? Ephesians 4:27. Give no opportunity to the devil. Right? Give no opportunity to the devil to mess with your life. Okay? Next one. 1 Peter 5:8. Okay? Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Right? Next one, and here's one definitely associated with Halloween because of what Halloween represents and what's associated with Halloween. Okay? 1 Thessalonians 5:22. Abstain from every form of evil. Okay? Abstain, meaning get away from every form of evil, regardless what it is, right? Here's the next one. Isaiah chapter 5:20. Okay? Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. And that's what the world do. They think there's nothing wrong with doing Halloween. Okay? Those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Okay? Next one. 1 Thessalonians 5:21 and 22, which we did part of already, when it says, but test everything. Hold fast what is good. So hold close what is good. Abstain from every form of evil. And that's the part that we read before, right? Romans 13:12 is the next one. The night is far gone. Okay. When is Halloween celebrated? Nighttime. That's not by accident. Okay. The day is at hand. So then let us cast off the works of darkness, put on the armor of light. Right? This one you might know. James 4:7. Submit yourself therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee. Okay? Not really, I would say that wouldn't be loosely associated with Halloween, only loosely. Now here's one that's more specifically associated with Halloween. It is Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 and 16. Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time. Talk about the time you have on this earth, because the days are evil. Okay. Next one, Titus 1:5. To the pure, all things are pure, but to the defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure. But both their minds and their consciences are defiled. Right? John 3:19 and 20. And this is the judgment. The light has come into the world, and people loved the darkness rather than the light, because their works were evil. For everyone who does wicked things hates the light, right? So there's one for sure, okay? That's associated with it, okay? Yeah, that one's not really associated with Halloween. So those are just some of the verses associated with it, okay? I'm scanning down to see if there's anything I missed on the live, okay? Which country did Halloween originate from? Ireland, Scotland, Brittany, Wales, Cornwall, and the Isle of Man. Okay, that's where it originated from. Halloween. So it's a pagan holiday. Okay. So the next question to ask is, what is pagan? What does the word pagan mean? The word pagan means a person holding religious beliefs. So pagan is a person who holds religious beliefs other than the main or recognized religion. So like in Philippines, I think the main religion is Catholic, right? So a pagan is someone who's not Catholic. So other words in the Bible for this are heathen, right? An idolater or idolatress. An atheist would be one for America. Atheists are people that don't believe in God, okay? Ungodly or unreligious, all right? They don't have any kind of religion. So now we need to look at the word secular, okay? Secular, okay? So what does the word secular mean? So one being a person who doesn't believe in God, doesn't associate with God, right? Now secular is denoting the attitudes that a person has, the activities that a person does, or other things that have no religious and spiritual basis. So on one hand, pagan is referring to the person. Secular is referring to the type of actions and attitudes and things that the person has, right? A person who is worldly, earthly, profane, non-church, non-religious, right? That would be the general idea of it, okay? So a secular priest, for example, would be a priest, but not one of the church, right? One of the world, okay? So that is secular, okay? Now, while there is no direct biblical response to Halloween specifically, just like there's no specific verses in the Bible talking about Trinity or talking about rapture, for example, is another word not found in the Bible, right? The Bible does have a lot to say about death, darkness, and evil. And since Halloween is really, really much associated with evil for the most part, right? We should really not too much be associated with it, okay? So this is, now listen to this. Many similar Bible verses condemn pagan practices. You should not be doing any kind of pagan practice, but none specifically warn against observing Halloween as a holiday, okay? So what is God's view on Halloween? So should Christians, now God makes it clear that he does not want us to partake in any kind of evil, no matter how harmless it may seem or how fun it may appear to be. Okay, now this is directly associated with 1 Thessalonians 5:22, right? The root of that thing is still wickedness and darkness and destruction. So let me put it this way. Even though you might have a take on Halloween to have fun, wanting to do no harm, right? And just wanting to enjoy yourself, right? And there's no evil involved in your heart. The roots of Halloween is still very much evil and darkness. Now, is it against the Bible to dress up for Halloween? The Bible clearly condemns satanic and occult themes. A theme would be the general thought for that party. So a theme for a party, like a party with a specific theme, would be, for example, here's a good example. I do themes in my home, right? For Valentine's Day, my whole house is in red, right? That's a theme. It has lots of teddy bears. I just see up here, Valentine's Day teddy bear, okay? Nothing wrong with that, okay? Now, the word is not having a theme for something is not wrong. But it's when it's combined with what? Occult. So we have to look up the word occult, right? Occult. What is the definition of the word occult, right? And occult is something supernatural, mystical, or magical beliefs or practices or phenomenon, right? Ghosts, magic, right? Like Harry Potter type stuff, okay? Supernatural, paranormal, supernaturalism, black magic, right? You get the idea, okay? The occult is it's an involving or relating to supernatural, mystical, or magical powers or phenomenon, such as voodoo, such as telling the future, such as crystal ball stuff, such as tarot cards, right? And other such things. That is what the occult is about, okay? That is the occult, right? And the Bible prohibits you from dealing with any satanic, that's devilish, or supernatural, dark force type themes, right? And it most definitely prohibits participation in such activities, right, as well. With Halloween, it's a different story since it's not exactly participation, yet occult themes are still at the center point of it, right? For example, when you go to a Halloween party, what do people dress up as? Most of them dress up something naughty, something demonic, something evil, something scary, right? Very rarely will you see somebody going into a Halloween party dressed up as an angel or something funny, right? Even if it is funny, it's usually having some sort of twisted, warped thing to it, right? Now, so let me loosely say this, okay? Now that we've finished that basic talk of Halloween for the most part, okay? Let me give you my personal take, okay? By the way, this is just my personal take on what I know of the Bible and such things, okay? Some parts of Halloween, absolutely nothing evil about it, right? I've separated eating orange cookies, right? Orange cookies, which was orange associated with Halloween, right? Orange sugar cookies, right? Frosted sugar cookies, right? Gummy bears and candy. Nothing wrong with me eating that stuff. Nothing sinful. I'm not doing anything wrong, right? But if I had done what I was thinking of doing next Halloween, which was to buy a werewolf costume and walk around the building, that would have been a no-no, right? That would have been a no-no because that's associating myself with the practices. And just for the record, werewolves, right? Where would werewolves come from originally? They are not heavenly creatures, right? They would be demonic creatures, you understand? Vampires are demonic creatures. Ghosts that we think about when we're associated with Halloween are demonic. Those are demons. Those are not people, okay? So I want to make that clear. So eating candy, nothing wrong with it, okay? You having your house in orange light, nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's just lights. That's it, okay? I'm not having a party. I'm not doing this, okay? You watching Halloween movies, possibly associated with the cult, not because it's per se demonic, right? So let me give you an example of what I mean. This Halloween, I was not planning on watching, right, anything like very, very nasty and gross and like zombie movies or any of that. No. That like anything scary and gross and gore. No, vampires. No, I wasn't planning on watching that either. Although I could have, right? But I wasn't gonna because that's associated with demonic influences, okay? But I was planning on watching cartoons, but even the cartoons are associated with that same type thing. Ghosts, goblins, right? Scary stuff. Woo, I want to scare you, right? And what is the purpose of Halloween when it comes to trick-or-treating, right? To scare, right? Fear. To give birth to fear. And here's my thought on that, right? What you feed is what grows, right? So if you're feeding fear, fear is going to grow. That's why people running around scared out of their mind half the time, right? Because they're constantly feeding fear, right? You need to learn to feed love, right? So Although I could have watched that, I'm not going to watch that. Okay? And instead, with Little Mama, who is here right now, me and her are going to watch some goddess shows, right? To spend this particular day, right? Using the time for beneficial instead of negative. And I'm doing this live to help you, which is benefiting you as well. Okay? So, my personal so not watching anything associated with the cult or the spiritual stuff or any of that stuff. In fact, I got to get rid of a lot of stuff that I have, and I've already done part of that. Throwing away Halloween. Once it depends on the motivation of only eating that only during Halloween. Sounds like you are participating in Halloween. It depends on whether you're celebrating Halloween, right, or not. So me eating that, it's just food, right? But if I'm sitting there going, oh, it's food, let's have a party, let's celebrate Halloween. Yeah, it could be associated with Halloween, right? So, but the way I'm looking at it now is I didn't think about it. I didn't know all this stuff. I had not researched this stuff, right? When I went to the store to buy this stuff, okay? So instead of letting this food go to waste, I'm going to eat this food, okay? You get the general idea. I'm probably going to be doped up on sugar, which is going to be really good because I'm going to be up all night till shopping in the morning. But in the future, right? So prior years, I had gathered Halloween stuff, Halloween decorations, Halloween, not the candy, but Halloween decorations and stuff, and bats and ghosts and stuff, like little things to decorate my house because I love decorating, right? But I had not noticed that I was associating with the darkness. And there's a verse for this, because aside from the ones we looked up, there's another verse in the Old Testament that says, when you go into a city that is pagan or worldly, and you capture that city, don't take away the prophets or the not the prophets, the prophet, the spoils of that city with you. Don't keep it, burn it, right? So that's basically direct telling me, get rid of the stuff associated with it. There's another verse that directly, let me see if I can find it. Verse about don't associate with things. Well, I'm trying to remember this verse exactly. It's on the top of my head, but it's yeah, very much though. You're right. It's the motive behind it versus what you're doing. So, just as for example, when the disciples ate food on Sabbath, they weren't eating food because they were trying to disrespect God. They were eating food because they were hungry, right? Just like when David went into the temple and ate the bread, the consecrated bread that was only for the priests to do, right? He was doing something biblically wrong, right? Same as Jesus healing on the Sabbath, right? Doing something biblically wrong according to the rules. But the motive behind why he's doing it is a different story. So the motive often becomes more important than what you're doing. Okay, so that's the concept there. But I'm trying to think of this verse. Oh, you're coming on the live. Thank you, little mama. Thank you, little mama. Thank you, little mama. We add you on the live. Let's hope your connection is good. Let's hope your connection is good and it don't drop out. Little mama be being added. But yeah, you definitely don't want to be associating with it. So it's adding you currently, apparently. And I'm trying to look for this verse that I was thinking about. I know it's a verse about not associating with, I guess, with things of the world. I know it's in the Old Testament. No, that's not it. Don't be transformed by the renewing. Yeah, that's not the one I'm thinking of. I know it was in the Old Testament. It had something to do in the Old Testament about um, not associating. Oh, you must not have good connection because it's still stuck on adding you. Um, but yeah, you must not have a good connection where you are or something. No answer from the live video guest. You need better connection. You need better connection. There you go again, popping up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm trying to add you. You need better connection. But yeah, I can't think of the verse. I had it. I remember it. I remember the influence it gave me. but I can't remember what specifically it was, any of the words or anything. But it was something to do with. I know it was the Old Testament. I think it had something to do with like, don't associate with the things having to do with darkness or something like that. Or um, wait, I think I have it. Verse about don't keep idols used by evil. I think something along that lines. Okay, so we're trying to add her. Um, so here's one. I don't know. This doesn't sound like the one I was thinking of, but Deuteronomy actually sounds like it, possibly. But this one is Deuteronomy 25, which says, "You must burn their idols in fire, and you must not covet," that means want, "the silver or gold that covers them. You must not take it, or it will become a trap for you. It is detestable to your Lord God." Right? And let's talk about idols, worshiping idols. And I think it had something to do with idols or statues or turning to idols. Um, but it was more specifically, the verse I'm thinking about had to do with, if you go into a city, don't use the idols that were used for evil, and try to use those idols for good, right? Um, so I'm going to try to look that up. Don't use things of evil for good. But yeah, that's not the verse I'm thinking of. It's an Old Testament one. Um, but yeah, it's, I'll have to find it at some point. But yeah, it definitely has to do with what I said, which is using the idol, and don't let the idol be used. Do not bring the. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Deuteronomy 7:26. Do not bring any detestable object into your home, for then you will be destroyed, just like them. You must utterly detest, that means hate, right? Such things, um, for they are set apart for destruction, right? Don't you dare bring abominations into your home. There's none one of, I want to read the verse to you about, uh, don't keep spoils of a city verse. So we have Deuteronomy 7:26 was one of them. Oh, here, Deuteronomy 13:16. You shall gather all its spoil into the midst of its open square, that's talking about a city, and burn the city and all its spoils with fire as a whole burnt offering to the Lord. It shall be a heaping fire. Okay, so this is in Deuteronomy, is the general area. Okay, another one would be Isaiah. Don't touch anything filthy, would be another associated with it. Um, uh, Spoils in the Bible but yeah, it was a spoil of, it was a verse about a spoil, and the one that sounds similar to it was the one I read, which was Deuteronomy. Okay, which sounds very similar to what I read. But I was reading the Deuteronomy. It was like, you capture a city, you go into that city. The spoils refers to things associated with that city. And there's a another. So we'll try adding you again. Okay, even though we're kind of wrong. Um, but the yeah, you are. Yeah, hello, hello. You comb in your hair. Hello, hello. So the verse that I'm talking about has to do with the city, right? So when I read the verse, here's what I was thinking: city associated with the things of darkness, not necessarily a city itself, but the the things that you can associate yourself with that are of the world, right? Then
Yeah.
I thought about spoils, the spoils being the things that come from that city, right? So, like, for example, the city of Halloween, the general association of Halloween, that would be the city, right? The spoils
Yeah.
would be anything from Halloween, right? And it says, according to this verse in Deuteronomy, it says, taking those spoils, don't keep those spoils, right? And put it in the middle of that city and burn that city and all the spoils. Means basically get rid of anything associated with bad, where the where the origination came from. Okay, and that's what got me thinking about. Okay, I have stuff for Halloween, I have stuff for Thanksgiving, I have stuff for Christmas. What stuff do I need to get rid of, right? And as I'm looking, I'm like, yeah. So Halloween, all Halloween stuff's gonna go bye-bye. Okay. My Thanksgiving stuff, none of that is evil itself, right? And we're gonna be doing at Thanksgiving time. We're gonna be doing a Thanksgiving video. But when you think about Thanksgiving, that's more about thankfulness, right? Versus what Halloween does is about, right? And we have Christmas. Now, in Christmas, there is twofold, right? Christmas itself is not bad, but what I'm going to be getting rid of is the stuff associated with Santa Claus, Frosty the Snowman, or any fictitious things, right? Because I want to focus more at Christmas time about God, right? Versus that. But we'll be doing videos on all these different holidays, right? This is why. Oh, there was one thing I do remember reading yesterday, but I didn't get a chance to share it. Jews never celebrate Halloween time, okay? So that's very, remember, Jews are God's people, right? So if they're not celebrating Halloween, it's probably a good thing, okay? Jews do not celebrate Halloween, okay? So here, why do the Jewish not celebrate it? So listen, Jewish religious laws, right? Jewish religious laws, they're not allowed to celebrate Halloween because it is not permitted by halakha, right? Which is the Jewish religious law, because it violates Leviticus 18:3. Okay, Leviticus 18:3, which forbids any Jew from partaking or being associated with non-Jewish customs. So there's something you can take for Halloween. Halloween is a non-Christian custom, right? So you associating yourself with a non-Christian custom will only open doors to demonic things. So let me tell you something that I felt, that's conviction of this, right? With the day that October 1st rolled around, right, this year, I pulled out all my Halloween decorations, right? I put them up around my living room area, right? I changed the lights to orange, and when I'm in my bedroom, I feel fine. And then as I walked into this area at nighttime, I felt a vibe, like a very darkish, kind of scary vibe. And that was stuff, you know, and I don't think that was accidental. I'm like, something's off. This doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? I was like, this vibe doesn't exactly feel right. And it's not the lights, because now that I've taken out the ghosts, the goblins, the vampires, and all this other stuff, as well as Grim Reapers, right? And now that I threw all this stuff away, I don't have that same feeling when I walk into that room, right? So as I'm getting rid of stuff, now next Halloween, there's not going to be nothing, right? At all.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to throw it all away. Soon as November 1st hits, all that stuff's going in the trash. It's wasted money? Yes, true. But that's my mistake, because had I known the truth about Halloween and what it really was about and associated with, and actually paid attention to it, I would have never bought this stuff over the years. Okay?
Yes. Because like the Bible says, if you are enemy in God, you are the lover of the world. If you are the lover of God, you are the enemy of the world.
Yeah,
And
if you're friends with God, you're an enemy of the world. And if you
that is James chapter 4.
Yeah. If you're a friend to God, you're enemy of the world. And if you're a friend of the world, you're an enemy to God.
Yes. And the Bible says, if anyone be in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has died and the new has come. So
Yes.
if you are
Yes.
studying that you are a Christian, but
Yes.
you are still associated with the world, so
Yeah.
there's
True.
going to be problem in your
True.
life.
True.
Your
True.
life will be questionable. Is it a
Yeah.
real
True.
Christian? Is that true Christians? And people, because the Bible says that we are the light of the world, whatever sins we have made, it's
Yes.
very attractive to all people who are not living in the world of God.
Yes.
They are always fault finders to all
Yes.
Christians
True.
believers. That's why it's normally for our Christians that any little bit sins, the world say, oh, that is a Christian, oh, he's a Christian, but he's still don't like that.
So let me say this about what I know about churches, for example. Okay, churches in America, churches in America have something called Harvest Festival, right? That they do. It's like
Yeah.
a Christian version of Halloween, basically. Most of them will
Mhm.
they will allow kids to dress up in outfits. So even though the giving out the candy, nothing wrong with that. Even though doing trunk or treat where they open the trunk, nothing wrong with that, right? And I've been to some of these things. In the back of some of these trunks, they have vampires, people dressed up as vampires and ghosts and stuff, right? And I'm like, you're still associating with the demonic, right?
Yeah, that's
So I honestly think it's a lot better for a Christian. So here's my personal take on Halloween. If you associate with yourself with Halloween for whatever time, limit yourself. Highly limit yourself. Don't go to any parties that have anything to do with dressing in any kind of provocative, sexy, or demonic type of thing, right? Don't don't. So let me give you this one, okay? So I bought these cards, right? So I
hold
bought
on.
these I bought these cards on for Halloween month, right? I bought these cards. Now I'm keeping these cards, okay? They're just cards, plain cards, right? I'm gonna keep the cards. Nothing sinful about the cards, but associating with Halloween, yes. So my tradition to do. Oh, that reminds me. I can't let the pumpkin pie in the fridge go to waste either. Okay, because I got pumpkin pie and whipped cream, so I'm gonna be eating that too. So I got a lot of yummy foods to eat. lot of
And
sugar foods.
And to let you know, Sir Kevin, and
Yes.
to let you know, Sir Kevin, even the Valentine's Day is same like the pagan celebrations.
Yeah, it's pagan.
So I never
So we
celebrate
have to look at the
Valentine's Day. I
motive.
never
But
celebrate Halloween.
let's deal with those holidays when those holidays roll around. Okay, we'll do a video on all of
Mhm.
them. We'll be able to talk about that specific holiday. So when
Yeah.
it comes to a holiday, you first have to address where it came from, right? So, for example, the idea of Christmas that came from God, right? That
Yeah.
came from God because the celebration of what Christ did to be born on the earth to
Yes.
come, that
Yes.
came from God. Now the twisting of it, that's the
Kevin.
problem. The twisting of it, right? So originally Christmas, let's just talk Christmas just for a second, okay? The origins of Christian came from the origins of Christmas came from Christianity, but the world has twisted it to be more focused on Santa Claus, Rudolph, Frosty Snowman, and all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in
Yes.
later times. But the
And
source is
very sad.
important. You have
And
to
very
look at the
sad.
source, right? Then you have to look at what that holiday is trying to cause in you. What is trying to produce, right? Halloween's all about fear, being scared,
Yes.
right? Being fearful,
Who is
doing
the
dressing in sinful things. I mean, you go to Halloween parties, you got women dressing up as naughty nurses, dressing in half-naked outfits, right? You get the idea.
yeah.
Not good.
And
Okay?
And we know the Bible says that who is the author of fear?
Devil,
Who is the author of fear?
the devil,
Satan.
Satan.
Satan want to make people fear. That's why
True.
if you always celebrating the Halloween, you are from one generations to two and three generations. They have fear in their hearts. Even the little babies say the mask like bloody,
Yeah,
look
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
vampire.
yeah,
It's registered
yeah,
to the mind of a baby that there is real vampire, there is a
yeah,
real ghost,
yeah,
and when you told the baby to go outside to buy something, the baby don't follow what you have been commanded because they
They're like,
have
oh,
the
it's
spirit
nighttime.
of
I'm
fear.
scared. It's nighttime.
Yeah, so
Like,
who
yeah,
told the baby to become scared? You.
yeah,
You are
you. Yeah.
accountable to the baby to become scared because you train the baby to focus on scared, to focus on fear because you train the baby. Like
Amen.
what like what the Bible says, and I don't know if I
By the way,
remember
guys. By
the
the way, guys.
verse.
She's on. She's for any guys that watch this video. She's only sharing. She's not preaching and teaching. Just so you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm only sharing.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. Go
I'm
ahead.
only
Continue
sharing
sharing. Continue your
what I
sharing.
know about the Bible. I'm only sharing what I know about the Bible.
She's only
Like
sharing.
like the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So that is Proverbs 22:6.
Yes.
It is found on Proverbs 22:6.
Yes.
So how you train your child when he is young, it should be become when he is grown.
Yes. True.
So if
So,
if you
go
train
ahead.
your child to celebrate the Halloween, then your child get married, the daughters or the son, the kids get married, then they also celebrating that celebrations is passed to the next 2-3
It
generations.
continues on to next
So
generation. So another part wrong with dressing up for Halloween is the fact that when you dress up in Halloween, you're blurring the lines between what is okay to do and what is not okay to do, right? It's the same principle
yep,
as why we have people who believe that they can be homosexual and be Christian at the same time, because the lines
yep,
of where the line of where this is good, this is bad, has been blurred. People can't tell where that line's at anymore, right?
the tree of sins. That is the tree of sins.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just for the record, for that instance, LGBT Christians do not exist. There's no such thing, right? Because to be a Christian means to stand against sin. And sin in the Bible says
Yeah.
same-sex relationships are sinful. So if you're standing against sin as a Christian, you obviously can't be an LGBT. But that's just an example
Yes.
with that. So general idea is either highly limit what you're doing to only be um, how would I say it? With Halloween, limit what you're doing if you have to, right? If like let's say for example you're working somewhere and your boss mandates that gives an order and says all coworkers must come to this party. Let's say for example, right? That means you have to go to that party, right? But how you present yourself during that party is all about you. So for example, if you go to a party and it's all demonic and stuff like that, you obviously don't want to associate with it. So like if they're doing, hey, let's bop outside, I can't partake in that. Let's tell ghost stories. Sorry, I can't partake in that, right? But you could also be a positive influence in a negative situation to be like, okay, let me dress up as an angel, a thing of God, right? A thing of goodness, right? Sorry. Let me dress up
Yes.
as a thing of goodness or a thing of God, okay? Let me bring some goodness into a bad situation. But that's more referring to when you're forced versus having the option to not do something, right? So if you, if you, if you, for, for whatever year it is that you're doing this, if you have to limit like myself, right? I'm limiting,
Yes.
right? I'm not going to be doing certain things. I'm not associating with certain things. I'm not having a party. I'm definitely not buying a werewolf costume next year. No, no, no. I'll save my money, use it for something positive, okay? Or any of that stuff. Because that was the plan. You buy Halloween stuff. So now I can
Yeah.
go and get rid of all the Halloween stuff that I was going to plan on buying, okay? And, but so here's the thought. So here is the thought.
Ito,
Basta na diyaw. Sunog din.
nag-ilis.
So here's the
Sorry, I'm
thought.
talking.
It's okay. So here's the thought with what I'm doing right
Ay,
now.
tulog nga.
Okay.
The lights sa Halloween.
Yes, I am limiting my exposure to Halloween this year because of the fact I'm already in it. Okay. And that may be playing with fire, so to speak, right? Playing with fire. As I just said, when I put up the Halloween decorations, I immediately felt something different. I'm like, what the heck, right? So you get the idea. Now, the better idea to do is not what I'm doing, but to simply do avoid or abstain. I mean, have nothing to do with Halloween, like what I'm going to do next year. To not have nothing to do with it. No Halloween candy, no Halloween nothing. Um, no watching Halloween shows, none of that. Okay, you get the idea. I'm not going to associate with none of that. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's the better option. Why?
because
Why is that the better option? Because on one hand, you have I could limit and still be playing with fire, be tempting myself, right? On the other hand, I could completely avoid Halloween and not be tempted at all. So you see the better choice there.
yeah, and for my own understanding, Sir Kevin, if you are a Christian and you're still celebrating that, like other what doing, so it sounds like you're worshiping Satan. You're honoring Satan. You're worshiping Satan because you give them acknowledgement to do like that kinds
You're
of
not
stuff.
worshiping Satan in your words or in your worshiping him like directly, but yes, in a way,
Yeah.
through your actions, because you're choosing bad actions or like because you're associating
Yep.
yourself with bad actions, you are in a way worshiping him. Because remember, we just read the other day in Romans where it said something about, if you remember, it said something about what you associate yourself with, right? Is who you're servant to. Remember that? Okay. So if
Yeah.
you're associating yourself with bad, you're servant to bad. If you're associating yourself with good,
Yeah.
you're servant to good. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And
uh, you have anything else?
yeah. And I need to finish my food first. I'm eating rice cake.
Oh, right.
So
Mm.
okay. So just I'm not teaching others.
Yes.
I'm not act as
You're
a
not trying to go according
preachers,
to
but
against the Bible. Yes.
but I like to encourage only for those who watch this video with Sir Kevin, because there are some people's thinking negative. If we talk about this, they are thinking that we are promoting our religions. We say, oh, they want to tell about that because they want to promote their religions. No, this is not about religions, but it's about our relationship with God.
And it's
So
also about choosing what you focus on and what you associate yourself.
yes, yes. And me and Sir Kevin just only inform people, but it's up to people to decide to choose whether they want to quit, to do celebrate like this, or they want to
No,
continue. So
I'm not your
it's their
God. I'm
own
not your boss.
choice.
I don't make your choices for you. I simply offer you the information that I've learned, that I'm learning even today, okay? And let you make your choices from there,
Yeah.
okay?
Yes.
Mhm. Okay, let them more. I'm done, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for that. So, uh, yeah, me eating the food has nothing to do with me celebrating this holiday. I already know it's stupid. I'm not going to do it, but I don't want the food to go to waste. So,
Yes.
and same with like what you said about putting food at a gravesite or something like that. Don't do that. Give it to people who can use the food.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Leto Mama, for your time. And by the way, black cats, superstition is also not of God, but black cats are not ungodly. Okay, they're an animal. They are no more ungodly than a bat, right? They are no more ungodly than a pig. Okay, The animal
Yeah.
itself is not ungodly. It's the viewpoint that humans associate. Because, I read this, by the way. For those who don't know why black cats were seen as associated with evil during Halloween, it's because in old years, right, it was the idea that if a witch, a person who was a witch, did not want to be caught, that they would transform themselves into a black cat. So when someone saw a black cat, that was a witch in disguise. Okay, so that was the idea of where the
Yes.
black cats being bad came from. Okay, so again,
Yeah.
again, we're trying to examine what is myth, what is fact, and where it came from, and then go from there. And then that's why we also interjected what the Bible has to say about these particular things that are associated with the occult, with astrology, with fortune telling, with talking to the dead, any of that stuff. Okay.
Sorcerers.
So thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Have a blessed day. I'm gonna be going. By the way, I'll be going live again here shortly for, I believe it to be Romans chapter 7, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So thank you guys for your time. Thank you, little mama, for joining. Thank you, thank you.
Welcome, Sir Kevin.
I love fellowship with little
Bye-bye.
mama. She's so awesome.